This is what it means to wear the crown at the Allen County Fairgrounds. And for those who've been lucky enough to keep off their lids here, the short-lived peace of mind is over. It's time once again to go to the line in Lima. This is Trucks and Tractor Power, featuring the best in NMRO mud racing. Today from the Allen County Fairgrounds in Lima, Ohio, it's the four-wheel Jamboree Spring Nationals. After heavy early morning rains, the fans here at the Allen County Fairgrounds in Lima, Ohio are bathed in sunshine. It's a bit windy and very humid, but these engines and the mud racers love the moisture in the air. In fact, it seems like we always have intense competition here at Lima. We've had some violent crashes, torn up a lot of iron over the years, and Lima has replaced Bloomsburg as the Lady in Black on the schedule. Here with more on that story is Army Armstrong.
The shutdown area, Gary, is taking the place of the infamous Bloomsburg Wall for providing action in the sport of mud racing like we've never seen before. If Sir Isaac Newton were alive today, we've proven his theory a 2,100-pound car cannot fly. Why do these cars have a tendency to act the way they do at Lima, Ohio? It's real simple. These guys are coming outdoors now. They spent the winter months indoors running on the shorter tracks where they have an automatic kill system. That's not the case here. Here, you leg the motor, you give it all it's got, you go 180 feet, and then the driver is responsible for doing everything else. The driver really has his hands full here. And talking to the drivers, we asked them to be very honest with us. All the drivers said the same thing. Really, if you blink your eye, it's over at Lima.
All right, there's a good look at starter George Cash as Gary Osteen rolls into the lane. He's driving the Dirty Bird out of Daytona Beach, Florida. He'll be taking on Chris Kane. Notice the different body styles. Now earlier, Army took a look at some of the fiberglass we'll be seeing in today's competition.
I love the diversity of mud racing. When I talk about diversity, I'm talking about the different body styles. No matter what kind of engine you're running, everybody's got their own preference of body styles. Notice the T over my shoulder? That's for the drivers that like the open type concept. They don't want a roof over them. But the Little Deuce Coupe next to him is on the other side of the slate. That gives the guy a little bit more protection, psychologically, I guess. But we're going to pan on over and show you some of the late model stuff too. So no matter what type of vehicle you like, there's a class you can race it in mud racing, and it looks like it's going to be Class 5 today.
Well, here's a guy that's come a long way to compete out of Daytona Beach, Florida, Gary Osteen in the Dirty Bird.
Sitting in the other lane, as Osteen relies on 4 horsepower, the new kid on the block, Chris Kane, with a beautiful candy apple prepared 32 Ford Vicky out of Manassas, Virginia, with some of that outlaw horsepower. Our first time to see this kid. Let's see what he's going to do when he pairs up against the old pro out of Daytona Beach, Florida, Gary.
Now remember, they're going against the clock and not against each other as they stage. That's Osteen, the far lane, Kane, the near lane. This is Class 5 competition. Good looking Chris there in the cockpit. Well, Kane had a great hole shot, and he takes the measure on the clock at 2.79. At 2.79. And Olstein's a 3.63, so he won't be too happy with that run.
Now, I'll tell you what, keep in mind, a 3-second run is about the bump spot. Anything quicker than that is a good run, and a 2.79 right out of the box is awfully good for the kid out of Manassas, Virginia.
You can see how messy that shutdown area is. Let's go down trackside and talk with Chris.
Chris, it looked like you were on the right side of the track a little bit. Is there any reason for that, or did the car just kind of wander over there?
That's the way it wanted to go. I just kind of went with it.
They kind of have a mind of their own once you leave that line, don't they?
Yeah, you got to kind of steer it into it, so we did the best we could.
The mud racing continues here in Lima. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Allen County Fairgrounds here in Lima, Ohio, where there is some track surface grooming going on right now. And earlier, Army took a look at track conditions.
Gary, there has been a change in the track at Lima. We're going to try to explain it to you. Number one, the track is still the same length. It's still the same width, side by side. But the depth of the track is where the difference is. Really, you're only looking at about 6 to 8 inches of mud right now, and it's real gooey mud. The starting line looks good. It looks like it'll hold the horsepower. But the big story is on the other end of the track. These guys are going to really be able to get up and zing it out the other end. So not as much mud connotates out to much faster runs.
Are you wearing boots down there, Army?
Simpson boots, Gary.
Stressed out. Coming up next, there is Roger Sherwood, and he goes up against Al Stebbins. Rapid Transit.
Stebbins out of Florida. We've had a chance to see him before. Sherwood's a new guy to us. We're kind of keeping an eye on them. Both of them liking that 23 Ford body style we talked about earlier.
Time to beat 279, turned in by Raising Cane, Chris Kane.
Gary, the trick is getting on top of the mud, skipping across of it. That's exactly what Stebbins did.
Roger Sherwood has a 3:18 ET, but coming up a time that will be very difficult to beat today at 2:73 for Al Stebbins in Rapid Transit. Great crowd on hand here in Lima, Ohio as we show you the replay near lane. Here's the Rapid Transit, and he takes it out of there to 2:73, and here's Army.
The number's 2769. You got to be tickled to death with that.
I think it'll hold. It's a slick track, Army. We detuned the car where it hooked because it was real wet earlier today, and the other guys, the other class, they were having fits with the track. We detuned the car. I hope it'll hold.
Yeah, once again, that number was a 273 as we take a look at the Bandit. This is Tony Farrell making his way to the starting line. And earlier, Army caught up with a guy who's taken his share of lumps here in Lima, Ohio.
Well, the blue ribbon is what all racers like to go out of here with, the checker flag or blue ribbon, but this guy's taken the blues with him for the past 2 years. Tony, not your favorite track to race at, I don't believe.
No, this ain't. This is more like a jinx track to me. You know, last couple years, we went out here, parts tore up. Last year, we put it on top. You know what they say, third time's a charm. I hope this year we bring home the money.
Let's find out what kind of blue he takes out of here, the blue ribbon, or if the old blues is going to follow him one more time. Back to you, Gary.
Well, he does not want to leave here black and blue, that's for sure, as he takes on Mel Brown. Mel Brown, Red Heat, another rear engine configured car.
Downtown Brown. Everybody's still trying to figure this rear engine concept out. Melvin's been around the sport a long time. Everybody's watching as he progresses with this car.
And Tony Farrell just wants to put that race car back on the trailer with all four wheels hanging on it.
That would be a major accomplishment for him. Now, just kick back and listen to this.
Well, is the monkey off his back? Maybe not. He's right side up, but obviously a mechanical problem for Tony Farrell.
Looks like a blown head gasket, Gary.
So Farrell at a 310 will have to take it home and then nurse that one as we take a look at Dan Vukovic in Bone Digger taking on Garland Walls in the Gambler. But first, let's talk with Tony Farrell. Here's Army.
Well, this tells the story right here, an indication of a lost cylinder, but you went through on two wheels, so it was better than last year, but not as good as you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I'd say we probably just burned a piston, but at least we kept the shiny side up this year, so I can't really complain.
And we go back to the starting line now with Dan Vukovic and Garland Walls. There's the Bone Digger.
Now, Garland's been around a long time. He runs under the sponsorship of the X1R friction fighter people out of Florida, and he can lay down a number for you.
Well, Vukovic had a good run top end, but Garland Walls takes a 346. He did not have a very good hole shot, a 315 for Dan Vukovic, so he really made it up on the top end.
You know, I'm noticing something else. These 23 open cars seem to be the car to be driving today. They are cutting the good numbers. I wonder if there's anything in that body design we talked about earlier.
Well, here's Rob Marshall and beating the odds, a 23 open coupe. Let's go back and talk to Garland Walls.
Garland, it looked like the car made a good move on the starting line and then hooked on you somewhere out there. What happened?
It's got a hard bottom, and it's just blowing the tires away. It's just starting to spin real bad.
So it's like no mud at all once you get going.
No mud. I pulled through the line to see if there's any mud. It ain't nothing there. It's just like the hard ground right here.
Well, looking now at split second, that's Jody Nelson staging against Rob Marshall, so this should be a dogfight. Rear engine against a 23 open.
Yeah, but the rear engine car has Power Rangers on it, so you know every kid in the crowd's pulling for it.
Once again, the time to beat a 2:73.
Wow, good lead. Time, Gary, that 23 body style, the open body style seems to work. Sub 3 second, 2:99 for Rob. Meanwhile, in the other lane, a 3:36. So the rear engine combination still not worked out in the sport.
Coming back with more. Stay with us. Hey, that could be the best seat in the house as we say welcome back to the Allen County Fairgrounds here in Lima, Ohio, where Ford Trucks present the four-wheel Jamboree Spring Nationals, part of the Special Events Performance Series. Al Stebbins continues to lead at 2:73, and Chris Kane right behind him, then Rob Marshall, Tony Farrell, and Dan Vukovic. Some highlights now from Class 5 competition, a battle of a couple of injected cars. Pete Resig in Magician, taking on Rick Wheeler in Alley-Oop.
Both of these vehicles rely on nitrous oxide to assist them to make their horsepower.
Alley-Oop gets in trouble in the shutdown area with a 387, the Magician, and Rick in Alley-Oop was disqualified.
Yeah, but Alley-Oop was a mean motor scooter and a bad go-getter.
I knew you were going to say that. Dan Harris in Delirious taking on Rick Hollywood Hoffman. And Hollywood smokes an engine going 368. Don Harris might not be too delirious with that 373. Last year's winner in Class 6, Tom Martin, back with the Super Coupe banner, had to backpedal in the near lane, but looks like he's taking good horsepower.
As soon as I took off, it turned to the right, and I had to lift, and then it took off like a rocket. I'm sure it hurt my time pretty bad, but the car felt real good, and that's good.
Hey, and here's something you don't often see. This is actually after the run. David Whitehurst in Psycho, backing up, backs over the Richter scale with Dan Richter, and then adds insult to injury.
He's going to kill our producer for putting this on the air.
Back to the starting line. So far, it's been a pretty tame day here in Lima. Mike Camella in Bonkers. He'll be taking on Mike Yosha in Hyperactive.
Mike Yosha came into the sport, working his way up. He's into the big supercharged motors right there, doing a little bit of a dry hop. He learned that from drag racing. The reason they do it here is to sling the mud out of the tires, not to make them hot, but to actually sling the mud out of the tires on these supercharged engine vehicles.
Well, of course, these guys are running late in the draw. They were unlucky enough to draw later in the competition. Track not perhaps as good as it was. There's the time to beat. A good run by Camella so late in the field, despite looking like he had to lift.
294.
294, yeah.
That's a number. That's a good number.
For this late in the competition.
Yosha, a 323. He could go better if he went earlier in the field, I would bet. Meanwhile, back on the starting grid, Jimmy Carr will be in the near lane in a supercharged Ford vehicle, 23-year model. But in the far lane, a beautiful vehicle, brand new body style, 27 Ford Roadster of the Behrman brothers. And Gary had a chance to look at it earlier today.
Well, the competition had better move over because the Behrman brothers are back in town with Chemical Reaction. The 93-94 Cut Tire champion will, of course, Steve and Mike debut a brand new 27 Ford Harwood Roadster. We see these things on the drag strip. Now, keep in mind, this is a new KCD chassis. They've gone to chrome moly, thinking it would be lighter, but the car itself is only about 30 pounds lighter than the old model. They still feature the Odie's 510 cubic inch power plant, but the big difference is the position of the cockpit. Notice it's offset to the left. Now, you ask the owners and drivers, Mike and Steve, why? They say, well, it's a better view past the engine. But in reality, that's the way this fiberglass body was molded. So instead of shaving out this area and cutting the body to match the frame, they made the frame to match the body.
You know, you guys at Circle Track are always saying Garrity engines. That's an Audi engine out of New York. I just want to get the engine builder's name right because he can make a whole bunch of horsepower for these guys. These are good kids. They're good for the sport. But the chromoly tubing, it may give them so much flex that the car won't handle. That could be a problem. It works good in drag racing, but in a lot of other sports, chromoly does not work. Yippee-ki-yo-ki-yay.
They almost get together in the shutdown area. Jimmy Carr goes a 3:03 and never satisfied. And look, there's Al Stebbins. He's looking on with interest. He leads right now.
Yeah, he knew either one of those vehicles potentially could get him. They didn't.
Now watch the replay. The far lane, there's a high spot that Mike Behrman hits. Right here, and now he launches again coming out of the pit. They almost get together, back on the power, turn away from each other. Let's go trackside. Here's Army.
This is mud racing, not hop, skip, and jump, and that's exactly what you did out there. That had to be a spooky ride.
Yeah, it caught the bank a little bit and threw me to the other side.
Okay, but then the car came back again and made another move.
Oh, I nailed it again when I got back in the pit good, straight. It's the best I could do.
The competition continues from Lima. Stay with us. We're coming right back. The four-wheel jamborees are part of the Special Events Performance Series featuring a weekend of four-wheel fun. Check out the manufacturer's Midway. There's also several categories of show and shine competition. Contact the Special Events Promotion Company to find out when a jamboree will be near your area. Oh, and there is some great-looking hardware on display here in Lima this weekend. Man, a lot of pride, joy, and money tied up in those vehicles. This is one I probably could afford.
Yeah, there's no age limit on fun. Always remember that. That's the beginning of it there, and guys like you are the end of it.
The kid doesn't have a seatbelt on. Let's take a look now at the current standings. Al Stebbins continues to lead with that earlier run of 2.73. Then Chris Kane continues in second. Mike Camillo, Rob Marshall, and Jimmy Carr rounding out the top five.
More Class 5 highlights. Darren Ovington, the owner of the Pork Brothers Express, normally drives indoors only, where the car has an automatic kill switch and the tracks are much shorter. He steps up today to go outside, so we're going to be keeping an eye on him. And right next to him is the guy with the weird hat, none other than Fred Wilhite, and old Freddie is ready. Check it out.
There's a time for Fred in an earlier run at 3:09 and Darren at a 3:46. Now, last year's Class 5 winner, Dan Brown, sporting new colors on his Mind Games vehicle. He's teamed with Blower Drive Service this season. Dan taking on another newcomer to the circuit, Joey Villarreal and Joey Quick. And after this run, Army caught up with Dan Brown.
Track today wouldn't hold the horsepower. It just blew the tires away. He's about like a water burnout in the drag racing, you know. So we felt it hook about half track, but it's probably not good enough.
More highlights now. Dan Fuchs living on the edge in the near lane, taking on Gary Reddick in Touch of Madness. Late in the field, Fuchs would net a 3:19. Reddick went out of bounds.
Yeah, but the good side is nobody's flipped so far. But it's not over. As Al Stebbins knows, there's still one or two guys that can drill him big time.
Yeah, one could be the oil well driller. That's what he does as a profession. That's Ron Pence in Tater. He's a former NMRO cut tire champion. He takes on Chuck Nolan's stepchild.
On an earlier feature, we talked about body styles, and we actually used Noel's vehicle, but if you look at it, it's a late model vehicle, but he doesn't have any top, and he doesn't have any doors. It doesn't look like anything I've ever seen before. Speaking of seen before, everybody is looking at this run. There's your leader in the black shirt.
Al Stebbins continues to lead at a 2:73. The other guys that couldn't match him standing alongside watching the final pair here at Lima, Ohio.
Gary, it's not over. Either one of these guys.
Good run for Tater. Let's check it out. Ron Pence turns in a 2:84. Good enough for third place, but not quick enough for the victory. Al Stebbins is your winner.
Congratulations to you. I tell you what, a good draw and a bad track worked to your advantage today. That early draw helped you, didn't it?
I believe so, but we still pulled an old slick track trick. We actually took off in second. I want to take this time to thank a few sponsors: Gary's Driveline, Larry Ladd done some head work, my engine builder Mike Ford, and last but not least, Bill Barrett does my fuel. If I didn't have them people, we wouldn't be here.
Thanks a lot. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, Al takes the victory over Chris Kane, Ron Pence third, Mike Camella, and Rob Marshall rounding out the top five here in Lima, Ohio. Then we had Jimmy Carr, Fred Wilhite, Tony Farrell, Dan Brown, and Dan Vukovic. Our congratulations to Al, and there's his lovely wife, Becky, that wraps it up from Lima. For Army Armstrong, I'm Gary Lee. We'll see you next week on Trucks and Tractor Power. Now here's news of an exciting video release from Diamond P Sports.